So Elisa Morales is going to be our first panelist, and she is a New York New Abolitionist and spokesperson to the Central New York Anti-Human Trafficking Force, in addition to a lot of other things. I will tell you that this woman emailed me about 11 p.m. at night one night saying, I just got done meeting with a trafficking victim, and I'm meeting her at 4 a.m. to get her shelter. So she runs on very little sleep and lots of energy and lots of passion. And we are so grateful to have her here with us to share about her work and her passion for trafficking, as well as how you can use the tools that she has discovered over the years in your own community. Elisa, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Sari, and thank you all for joining us today to raise awareness and learning about how to combat human trafficking, which is a cause that's so passionate to my heart. Human trafficking does not discriminate. It can really happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. America has an insatiable appetite for slavery. We contribute so much to the demands of labor and sex trafficking throughout the world, but also right here on American soil. For over a decade, I've been working with international victims, which are foreign nationals from other countries, and also with American citizens of all ages. After so many years of doing this work, nothing surprises me, and unfortunately, there's a lot more work to be done, even though we have made some strides in combating slavery here in this country as well as throughout the world. You know, the invisible people, they walk amongst us. You may not see the chains, but they're enslaved all the same. I find that labor and sex trafficking are very interconnected. You really don't find one unless you see the other. Just like domestic and sexual violence are very interwoven as well. And speaking about domestic violence, I also find in my experience that a lot of the power and control dynamics of domestic violence are very similar with human trafficking. So if you've ever seen that power and control wheel for domestic violence, human trafficking is all over it, with emotional, sexual, physical, psychological, financial abuse, and so many other things. Also in my experience, I find that domestic violence victims are trampled spirits, but I feel very strongly in what I've witnessed and what I've seen and what I've heard from the victims that I've worked with, that trafficking victims are actually broken spirits. But that's where I come in, to show people and inform them and let them know and share that there's help and there's hope, and that's why I dedicate my life to this cause. You know, there are a lot of people who cross borders who go to great lengths and sacrifice to try to come onto American soil in search of that American dream and a better life. I find many times that, you know, the risk of deportation is something that many people that are crossing those borders voluntarily are very fearful of. They don't want to be returned to their homeland where they're going to be experiencing the same dire circumstances. But I have found in recent years that deportation has a very terrifying twist. And it is that when people are deported, traffickers know about it, and they're on the homeland soil, ready to intercept those people that are being deported and enslave them immediately on the spot. A lot of times families are broken apart and are sold separately into the sex and labor trade. This is something that happens every single day. When I meet with international victims or people from other countries here in America, I find that they're always in harm's way. Not only are they in harm's way, I'm in harm's way too. And I'm aware of that. I still find myself feeling very fortunate that I have come to be able to cross paths with so many people who have been able to transition. Also, I speak a little quickly.
New Yorkers.
It's New Yorkers. I'm a little Puerto Rican, going a little too quickly as well. So I'll try to slow down a little bit because I don't want anyone to miss any of the information that we're sharing here today. I find that with meeting the international victims, a lot of times they're very, very afraid of their traffickers, and rightly so, because traffickers are their word. If they make a threat, they tend to follow through on it. So even when people are sold into slavery by their families, if their families are being threatened, if someone says, if you don't do what I say, when I say it, I'm going to harm your family, you know, victims know that they are their word. It's just a phone call to call back to the homeland and make sure that someone does get harmed. In addition, victims are being subjected to incredible abuse. They're also living, many of them, in very poor conditions, and others in incredibly good conditions, but they're still enslaved. They are not free to come and go as they please. Something that I find so challenging is that trafficking victims have a lot of fear instilled in them. There's a sense sometimes of obligation with a trafficker, and it's very hard to penetrate when people are, to penetrate the fear that people are experiencing. One of the challenges I have is that sometimes I'm only going to meet that person one time. I know this is my one opportunity to instill some tools into people to get them help now, or give them the tools that they need as they're they're transiting. They're actually on the move, because this is merchandise. Human beings are considered merchandise, and merchandise is bought and sold every day. So I have a small window. One of the unique little tools that my creative little mind came up with that has saved countless lives is that, I assess a situation quickly, find out if a person is not coming with me to shelter or getting help right now, where they might be going. I share the National Human Trafficking Helpline or Hotline number often. And one of the ways that I found to share that is by singing the number and showing people the number on my telephone. A lot of trafficking victims are not educated. They can't read and write. Because I have such a small window, I find that, singing a number to the tune of a lullaby is very resourceful and is very easy for them to remember a number. So I might sing the trafficking hotline number like 888-373-7888. So what a trafficker hears when they go back to the trafficker and they're trying to remember that number is just a humming lullaby. So this has actually been a tool that I've used. I'm not sure where it came from. It came out of a light bulb went off in my head pretty quickly one day, and I've used it, and it really has helped a lot of people. I have found in my years that I've been working, and in this area, I live in the state of New York. I live in central New York, and we are a hub for internet virgins. The way that that works is that you will see an image of a young girl or boy, but in particular young girls, because virginity is a highly profitable industry here in America. You'll see a picture of them online, and a bidding war begins. And whoever the highest bidder is, usually $25,000 later, the person not only gets to take that child's virginity, but also gets to take them home. They get to clean their home and take care of their children and do whatever it is that they say. And again, they don't live in the best of conditions usually, and they're abused over and over again. The person who buys that virgin may also want to sell them forward. They've already got their virginity, they've gotten their high, they're on to the next person, just looking at the merchandise again, and the bidding war begins again. They also could sell that virginity over and over. Again, a newer trend that I've seen over the past few years, just in our own area, is that traffickers are taking that child's vagina and sewing it to mimic a hymen so that they can sell that child over and over and over again. These poor children are subjected to multiple partners in a day, always raped because they're not choosing this, enduring incredible pain and often not getting the medical care that they need. It's a horrible experience. I've met a lot of people who have come from that internet virginity industry and have been able to get out, thankfully, but they're not all out. So we still, like I say, have a lot of work to do. Americans spend a lot of money on foreign nationals, but let's face it, America is a melting pot. We don't have to go far to find what it is that we're looking for if we're looking for some diversity. So that means our own American citizen children are at risk more and more every day. Traffickers are at our schools, they're at our malls, they're everywhere, that they're on the internet, they're everywhere that our children are frequenting. Parents in America are selling their children every day. I've seen parents that have sold their children And when I say children, I mean their teens, their children, their toddlers, even their infants, in exchange for iPods, iPads, laptops, rims, cell phones, you name it. There's an exchange. There's an exchange value for that. Even pay their rent. You know, have sex with my child. I can't pay my rent this month. Let's call it even. Unfortunately, I see a lot of that every single day. Foster parents are rehoming. Rehoming is the secret swap between a foster child who goes from one home that they're placed in and then are temporarily placed within the sex trade industry, from home to home to home, having sex with these children and making money for them. Americans are also breeding children. And, okay, I'm seeing time too. I could talk about this all day, all night. Pregnancies are being terminated sometimes because they're that they can have them so that they can control them. But sometimes those pregnancies are not profitable, or they stand in the way of making some sort of profit. So sometimes they are, you know, unfortunately, they are being terminated. So where do we find trafficking? Everywhere. In natural disasters, the Super Bowl, colleges, offices, you name it. I was asked to speak about some red flags, and I'm going to ask Sari to allow me to put that on the, to share that afterwards. You know, we'll put it on the website. Unfortunately, I ran out of time, and I want to hear our other speakers, so we'll see if I could chime in somewhere down the line.
Sure. Thank you so much, Elisa, for that presentation, which it just it gets you in the gut, and not a nice way. And it's so hard to believe that these things are happening in our country and anywhere in the world, but specifically to think about them happening here right under our noses. I've put some of the red flags up here on the screen for you to view just briefly, but also I forgot to mention this at the beginning. I'm putting together a resource and action packet, which has resources from all of our speakers, as well as additional resources from well-known and well-respected anti-human trafficking organizations online. And so you'll be getting all of that. So if you can't find time or aren't able to scribble down everything the panelists are saying, totally fine. We have you covered. We'll be sending out this information immediately following the call. So be sure just to listen to the gist of what our panelists are saying, and we'll get that information to you after it's over.